Hello, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Curtis Stewart. I'm the artistic director of the American Composers Orchestra. Go ahead. I have the great honor to welcome you into the process mind and work of Mazz Swift, who is an amazing violinist, composer, improviser. They've been on the road with Rhiannon Giddens and the Silk Road Ensemble for a little bit of time now. I remember being on my first gig back from the Eastman School of Music. This was years ago. And we were standing next to each other doing it in an improvising string orchestra where people were this violinist Jason Huang was introducing the ideas of conduction, which is based on the great Butch Morris's work to strings. And Mazz will let you know a little bit more about that. As you can see, there's a whole section, and this is what our ACO musicians in the American Composers Orchestra were looking at in March and exploring the details of this graphic score. Any other things I should tell them? Mazz is amazing. Please welcome Mazz Swift to the stage.
I'm good. I like to just play music as a way of introducing myself, so we'll do that in a minute. I'm happy to be able to play for you, and I think I'll do some more in a bit, but I also wanted to take this as an opportunity to talk a little bit about the piece that I've written and am writing for the ACO, American Composers Orchestra. So I wanted you to take a look at this. As Curtis said, this is the music that, this is the score that folks will be looking at. And they're all really mad at me about it. So I think I'm doing my job. I wanted to talk a little bit about like this, the whole idea of the graphic score and what I'm trying to accomplish with it. The name of the piece, which I don't have written here, is Memory 5, and the subtitle is Freedom Initiate. And so the idea is to start exploring the cross-section of mindfulness and presence with improvisation and music making inside a very institutional, like Western classical like style of institutional music making. Curtis mentioned Butch Morris, who I had the pleasure of working with for a long time, and with someone who got their work from him as well, which was Greg Tate. And so I learned a lot about conduction from working with the architect of it, as well as just one of the greatest minds in music making in New York City, in Greg Tate, and also in Butch. So what I've been trying to do is incorporate conduction in everything that I do. When I'm commissioned to write a piece, there's always going to be a moment where people are doing this thing called conduction. Conduction is the word itself. I'm trying to avoid this like noisy spot on the floor, so that's what's happening here. The word itself is like a portmanteau of conducted improvisation. Smushed together, it's conduction. But Butch also talked about the idea of conduction in the electrical sense of conducting energy, and sort of like, and it's, the way I interpret that is like that it's a feedback loop. So we have the conductor who is ostensibly sort of making, quote unquote, making the orchestra do things, but really what it is I tell you what to do, you respond. There are certain parameters within which I expect you to respond, but otherwise you're free to do whatever you want. So it's this great sort of like structure that also gives great freedom to the music makers themselves. And I think that's really the name of the game for me, is finding freedom as a person who is classically trained and very much outside the norm as a non-binary, very queer, very black, very AFAB, assigned female at birth person. Nobody knew what to do with me, and I was not expected to last in that world, and I really didn't in the classical world. But I love music, and I do find freedom in it. So I have always wanted to come back to that. That's like the core of what I'm doing. So what I thought was, I mean, the way I approached this with the orchestra, and it turns out that what I'm doing is actually, this can be considered a like this sort of master score. Any musician at any point in time can take one quadrant and one symbol from one quadrant and create an entire piece out of it. So this is like a universe in a way. And so what we did together with the orchestra was kind of just move through the quadrants just to see what we can do. And I thought it might be fun to just like do a little bit of that with you. I know that you're not necessarily musicians. If you are, yay. If you're not, yay, even better. I find music making and just noise making with people is always really fun. So I hope you'll join me in that. Before we move on, I'll just talk about some of the things that we're not going to deal with, like this, for instance. So this was actually, those colored boxes were inspired by work I did with Martina Roberts, who is an incredible composer and alto sax player and thinker, and their work is phenomenal. You should definitely check them out when you get a chance. Their name is Martina, M-A-T-A-N-A Roberts. But I did a recording with them, their last recording we did here in New York City, and they had, they're a painter as well. They started out doing graphic scores and realized that it was really art, it was really the same shame for them. So they've gone on to like do like, you know, art showings. They were installed at Whitney Museum for a while, making art and all of that. So it's really blossomed. But my work with them really made me realize like how in depth you can get with just shades and colors and shapes to spark the imagination of the musician. What it takes is trust and a willingness to be vulnerable and that those two things are not very they don't come naturally in, you know, the Western classical way of thinking. You never want to do anything unless you know what it's going to sound like and then execute it perfectly. But that is just not life. So this is where I try to inhabit and learn from. So things like this, it's very, you know, it means something different than something like that. You can see the differences. And so what does that mean as far as making choices, when you're making choices about what sounds to make and how they relate to each other or don't relate to each other. So and it was a really challenging session for me as well. It was not easy. You're never sure if you're quote unquote doing it right. And no one really is until you are done, you look around and you're like, wow, we just went somewhere, you know? Or even later when you listen back and you're like, wow, we went somewhere, and the whole time I was worried that we weren't going anywhere. So that's another just aspect of this kind of music making that's about life more than it is about just doing a perfect thing. Okay, so I figure let's start with, let's go to the next slide and we'll talk about this one that's conduction. That starts with conduction and ends with musicians playing this melody. And these are lyrics that when I wrote it, I didn't realize that the ACO was game to sing things. So I thought that was really cool. They were like, would you like us to sing this? I was like, oh my God. So what I did was I wrote it so that people could have a thing that they're thinking as they're playing this music. So, and often we're told like to know a melody better or to like understand a thing better, try singing it. That's a really good way to like practice something that might be difficult. Like take it out of your body, put it in this part and give it a try that way. So, but before we get there, I'm gonna pull out my trusty, I recently did I conducted a jazz opera not long ago, and I was gifted this, and it makes me so happy. I like sparkly things, shiny things. So anyway, so this is my new conductor's baton, and I thought I would give you just a little taste of what we're doing when I say we do conduction in an orchestra setting. Just by way of like just raising your hands, like who has heard of conduction? Okay, there's a few of you. You're all ACO people. That's excellent. Well, that's good. Then we know the ACO is in good hands. Okay, so what the conductor does is we stand up here. I give you the orchestra. You are now the orchestra. I give you the symbol. I tell you what I want from you, any of these symbols that I'll do, and then I'll give you a downbeat to do it. That's kind of like the hardest thing for people to get is like, when I tell you, they immediately want to start. So I tell you what I want, and then I tell you to go. So I always like to start with this symbol, and what we're going to do here, if you're not comfortable using your voice in any way, and we're not trying to be pretty per se, we're just making sounds. You can also think about, you know, making sounds on your body in any way. Yeah, you can. Yeah, kind of, you know, these kinds of things. Just use what you have at your disposal, and you have quite a bit actually. You can use your feet too if you want. So this is the first symbol I like to use, and this just means I'd like you to make one sustained sound. And so that can be shh, it can be ah, it can be ah, if you really want to keep doing that for a long time. But it can be any of those things, so just really use your imagination. Will you do this with me?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, cool. So this is the symbol, and then I will give you the downbeat. When this baton falls, you will make the sound. Yeah, that's great. Let's do that again. Oh, I love it already. So then when the baton falls the second time, you're going to change, like shift your sound just a little bit. We're creating a little bit of a melody or something. We're not trying to be random per se. We're just doing something that feels like it follows. So hello. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so we're hearing subtle differences now. Let's do a couple more of those. Awesome. So we're already making music. Let me think of another one that would be fun to do. Well, there's this one. We call that the pedal. Sometimes I go like this, but this is the pedal. So that just means like make a sound and make it die down. So that's always kind of a fun thing to try. So let's give that a try. You can use the same sound you were using or switch to a different sound. So this is the pedal symbol. Yes. Yeah. I love that. Beautiful. Okay, last one. This is a little more whimsical. It's fun. I'm pointing to my temple, which means I think the idea is to try not to poke yourself in the eye, but he's saying use your vision to create the sound that you think that I'm trying to dictate to you, which is graphic. So I'm going to do something, you're going to move your voice around or move your legs around or do whatever it is that you want to do to follow the shape that I'm drawing in the air. So okay, cool. So now we have those things. We'll do a little bit of conductor, but I'm just going to play you this melody. And this was a really fun moment to work with the orchestra, where I was basically asking them to sing with their instruments, really put this word hope into the note that they play. So, home is a many-colored thing. So we cling unknowingly. to play a little of my piece for you all. I was like, how the fuck am I gonna do that? Like, what is the orchestra gonna do there? So, but I really appreciate you joining me in this. And I had a feeling it was gonna be fun, and y'all are amazing. So thank you. That's it.
Well, first of all, Mazz, thank you so much for that. Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa. I'm president of American Composers Orchestra. Am I okay without the handle? You're okay? All right, fantastic. Sorry? You need the mic?
They want you to use them.
Okay. Great. Here I am. I've got the microphone.
I'm going to turn it on.
You have to turn it on.
Listen, you think I've done this? No, it is on. Is it on?
It's
Nailed it.
Nailed it! You want to grab this tool?
Sure, let's do it.
I'm going to move this out of the way. That's a little boomy to talk into. So.
We're gonna be
weirdly tall.
I know. We're gonna be fancy and sit on stools. So first of all, thank you so much for being here, and thank you, Mazz, for that experience. That experience. And I don't say performance, I say experience. So I want to ask you a little bit about preparation for something like this, because as we've been thinking about this project, one of the things that I've been learning so much from you is what it means to prepare yourself for this. And I say this, those of you who only met me in this role, you know me as president of an orchestra, but I'm a recovering orchestral piccolo player. So everything she just said, or everything they just said, is completely accurate about the fear of doing things wrong, the fear that you will lose your job, the fear that you will be embarrassed, the fear that something is going to happen if you. So you prepare to do things right. But what does preparation look like for this?
Before we even go there, is this on? Yes, it is. Okay. I think it's interesting to also think about the flip side of it, which is when you get to be good at what you do, then you're very proud of yourself for knowing that it's going to be right, and then you get really angry with yourself if it's not as right as you thought it was going to be. Like, there's all of that. And I think it's important to say that because part of the preparation, I guess the goal for me is to get folks to think about it as like, the way, like, maybe you've heard, if you hear somebody describing meditation, where it's like you just let the thoughts go by. You're not trying to control the thoughts. You can't control the thoughts. Your brain does the thinking. The brain is made to think. So you let it think, and you just observe that. And so when we're talking about making music, the idea is to just try different things, like take this line, "So we cling unknowingly," like what happens if I turn it upside down and play it like that, or if I read the words backwards, or like there's like so much you can do, and then observe your reaction. So a lot of the preparation for this, I was just talking about it earlier with Curtis, was that a lot of the sort of culture in orchestral music and learning music is that you get a score from the composer, and there's like a bunch of information that they like write in the beginning of it, and most people don't read it, and you just kind of show up and you play the notes. And so when someone, and I'm not going to say that the ACO was this in particular, but I've had this experience over and over again in over the years, where they look at the music and they say, "Oh, I can just do that when I get there," like that's fine. I see, like that's easy. I can sight read that, and it's not a problem. But the idea of doing that and making it feel like you're making music that you feel proud of required you to think a little bit more about how you feel about it. So part of the prep is to actually read the instructions and treat them like they are the score itself, and then to just do them. They're all the preparation suggestions, instructions are just that. They're suggestions for how to start thinking about the music making.
Yeah, that's great. And you also invited the musicians to prepare in pretty specific ways, some of them on the instrument, some of them in terms of preloading that session with ideas, and then some journaling, which I thought was really cool. And I noticed when you started, I don't know if anyone else picked up on this, but it was like the best part of my day was watching you set up and be still. for a good long while. We're hearing the sirens go on. So I kind of want to explore that concept of the journaling and the listening that might prepare you for an experience like this.
Okay. Well, the suggestion/instruction was to, as you're going through the process of, maybe we can look at the next slide and you can show some of those symbols. So this was the most difficult one to approach as any person who is used to reading music. So the idea was, I asked folks to, on their own time, come up with what they think that sound would be, and then come up with what they think that sound would be, and how does that sound relate to that sound, or actually I should say that sound. And then, how does that sound combined with that make that? So it's like a lot of thinking to do. It's a lot of prep. And so I asked folks to come in with distinctly different sounds for each of these symbols and then figure out how to put them together. So when you're the top X there, right under the crown, you're gonna hit that sound, whatever it is you decided on, and you're gonna play it all the way to here. So you will have already figured out what you want this to sound like, and so that's going to be your trajectory for the piece. That is your path. So with all of that, there is so much in here. This is actually, I think, is a lot. It's a lot. It would be a lot for anyone to prepare for. So what do you feel like when you're doing that? And a part of it, I have to say, comes from like my understanding. I know I have more experience in orchestras than I do as a solo artist, and I know what people are thinking already. I want them to be aware what they're thinking. And a lot of it is just discomfort and irritation. Like, why are you making me do this? Like, this is not music. This is not why I got into orchestral playing, and some of that is like, I'm pushing on that. And some of it is like conceding and knowing, like, I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable, like to the point where it's just unenjoyable, so there's that balance as well. But that's a separate topic. But as far as preparing is concerned, I think the journaling was really important because I want people to understand that they're irritated with it or that they're really enjoying it and still do it, and still go through that, which creates some kind of blockage in a way, but sort of taking that into consideration and then moving past it, like the thoughts, just letting the thoughts go by. This is just another thing that's happening. Like, the irritation is just another phenomena, but you do have a thing to do, and you're still going to do it with pride. That's the hope, anyway.
I love it. And what you described earlier as you were talking about the experience, when we think about what it means to practice something, to get better at something, in the musical context, maybe it's playing something higher, faster, louder, but actually what you're encouraging is mindfulness. It's vulnerability. It's courage. And we get to this a little bit in your workshop, but also responsiveness to other people, and then that ultimate element of freedom, and these are musical concepts, yes, but they're more than that. They're human.
And also, I think an important thing in all of those to add is getting to know your own voice. I think I've heard somebody say that anger is like a secondary emotion, like you're angry because of something. And so, like, feeling the anger about the thing, like, I'm mad that I have to do this. Why are you mad that you have to do this? Well, it's not what I signed up for. So what did you sign up for? Just sort of like drill down into why you're so irritated with this process. And in doing that, I think eventually you come to the point where you're like, oh, it's because I don't feel safe, or I don't actually believe that I'm just making random sounds is going to be very musical. I don't think people are going to like it very much, Like, all of those things are real things that we worry about and don't often talk about. So like adding that into understanding this understanding how to make this music, I think that's actually what leads to the freedom, is to be able to be like, okay, but I kind of like this, or I didn't like that, but it's not actually what defines me as a human being. so I'm going to be okay.
And I also just want to say what a gift that you're giving to all of us, because this is a style of music making that, look, none of us came in here with orchestral instruments in our backpacks expecting to make music tonight, but what you did was beautiful. I don't know how it felt to you, but it felt great to me to be a part of this with you, and thank you for the invitation to make that happen. And I think I've witnessed our own orchestra go through a similar leap. I sat with you when you listened to the recording back and said, wow, we went some there.
That was actually pretty good.
That was pretty good. So I guess maybe last question for me before I open to everyone. What were your expectations going into the workshop, and what was your experience looking back?
My expectations were for sure that, like a portion of the orchestra would be like, this is so cool, I'm totally game. And then a portion of the orchestra would be like, why are you making me do this? You know, and maybe a couple of grumbles. But I kind of thought, well, we're just gonna give it a go and see what happens, and that's basically what happened. You know, there was some grumbling, there was some like yes, and we gave it a go and made a really cool thing. What I didn't expect was how humbling it would be for me. Like, I'm used to kind of coming in and just sort of managing all the sort of unexpected things and feeling like I still got this. You know, like I came away a little bit questioning my entire like approach. Like, is this okay? Like, you know, are we okay? Like, and so that was. It was a humbling experience, and I got some feedback from folks, and that was really helpful as well, as far as like how to think about making this piece of music for the orchestra. I'm not interested in just doing an intellectual exercise for myself that the people who are playing it don't understand or even like. You know what I mean? So it's important that it be a collaboration.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And we had a little taste of that today. And what I love, thank you to all of you for your courage and music making, because, you know, one word that I don't love to use is the word audience, because it suggests that anyone in this room is less of a musician than those who are standing up here, and all of you were born with that. So thank you for the invitation to remember that. And I want to just open the floor to questions for anyone who might either have questions or observations about what you just experienced. Please, Wendy.
So I'm curious what happens after EarShot, you know, after the collaboratory workshop, right? What are your intentions for steps 2, 3, 4, 5, public performance? I mean, what happens to the piece? How does it get rehearsed, or does it continue to just be?
Right. So the question is, where do we go from here after we do our first, you know, EarShot, which is the name of the workshop thing, right? Or collaboratory. So this is part of the, and we can actually move to the next slide so we can look at the whole score again, if you get a chance, Stephen. There it is. Yeah. Wait, this looks like it's the same. So the idea was that the second time you see this score, it's going to be upside down, but because you can really look at it any which way. So, but in any case, this is the score that this is the latest version of it. I am in the process of taking apart, particularly that top quadrant, and reconfiguring it so it's not as daunting to look at for an orchestral musician. For traditionally orchestral musician. And then we'll have another workshop in August. And that is, again, less rehearsal, more workshop. I was reminded by my good friend Curtis today. And those are really two different things. So it's another opportunity for me to see what works, what doesn't work. And then after the workshop in August, I will then sort of solidify those things. I would really like the score to stay looking like this as much as possible. We've talked about, you know, taking one quadrant out and making it like a page, so that's like the page that people look at. And that's still a possibility. So, but this is all just like logistical stuff. Like, but then we will rehearse it in October. in the days leading up to the performance, the premiere at Carnegie Hall on the 29th.
Fantastic. Other questions?
So is it always going to sound different?
Is it always going to sound different? Yes, absolutely.
So it's always a different piece?
It's always a different piece. Some elements will be recognizable, like any of the, I mean, this shape, this up-down shape kind of comes in a few places, down, up, down. But like the melody, hope is a many-colored thing. Like obviously you're going to hear that and go like, oh yeah, no, I know that, that's in that piece, right? But that's about the only thing that stays. Everything else, all of the improvisation. I mean, the orchestra is free to come up with entirely different sounds for each of those symbols. I have a feeling that they won't. They will probably decide on a thing, and that's absolutely okay. Because the idea is to just like explore whatever it is that you're coming to it with. So, yeah. But yes, ideally it will sound different. And you know, even on the day of the concert, we may decide to just stick with one quadrant and explore that. Like, you can do an hour-long concert with that. So,
do you envision, even while you're doing this as a workshop and kind of an exercise that has improvisational elements, you envision a final, a more formal score that then can be used with or without you?
I absolutely want this to be used without me and with me. I think that that's about as formal as the score is going to get, and I love the idea. Like when I think about projects, I think about like a recording project could be like the master score, and then movements 2, 3, 4, and 5 are, you know, each quadrant, and then the 6th movement is the same score done again, or something like that, you know. So the idea is that someone could, and maybe what I'll do is, well, no, I like the way I did it. So what we do is when we rotate the thing like this, we're calling this half moon up because the half moon is on the top. So we rotate it counterclockwise, and it'll be the crown side up. And you're always going to the right of the symbol. So we're always reading to the right of the each symbol. So that's how I'm talking about reading it. So the idea is that maybe someone says, oh, you know what, I want to do a concert with the triangle side up portion of the score. So that's ideally what would happen, but I don't know. I think I have to create a bunch of like cult followers first to make that happen. So,
I just want to add one.
Yeah.
Oh, to that. So, do you see this in different configurations, like a large orchestra, a jazz ensemble?
Yeah, absolutely.
A quartet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how do you?
It's open instrumentation, and it's open clef for the most part. Yeah, it's all open clef. I just automatically did it in treble clef because that's where I think and where I play on the violin. But yeah, this could also sound entirely different if we put it in the bass clef too. So then there's all of that. You can have 8 bass players play it, a version of it.
Can that quadrant be played upside down, or does it have to shift and become, because it's upside down?
I mean, you can do whatever you want with it, you know? Like, I can't tell you not to do a thing. I don't think, I would just be like tickled if anybody does anything with it, you know? So if somebody like comes out in like 20 years and they're like, I found this old dusty thing and I took it and I played it upside down and here's this amazing piece. I'd be thrilled. So yeah, you can really do anything with it. Yes?
Talk about old dusty things. I'm wondering if, I know this is quite avant-garde in a sense, but I'm wondering if there are any like established iconoclasts, either American or maybe European, like I said, that you took any inspiration from. Like for me, I have a classical background, but I'm also a contemporary composer. So I see loads of things in this, and I'm just wondering what inspired you. What inspired me?
I think I'm mostly inspired by folk music and like protest songs and things like that. And gospel. So I mean, that's really where some of those melodies are coming from. I think in making this, I thought a lot about George Lewis, who I'm not, necessarily like 100% like that's my jam, but there were certain aspects of working on a piece of his that was really interesting, and so that kind of comes back to mind. I'm also, like I said, inspired by Martina Roberts with this color thing. And I think, as far as, I don't actually have like a real reverence for figures, historical figures per se, so I'm as like over the moon. I'm quite taken with my friend Peter Evans, who's an incredible trumpet player, like out in the world right now, and I really like making music with him, and so when I'm writing some things, I'm like, oh, this is like something that we would do together. It's more like that. I'm inspired by different things at different times. So.
I got it. I totally get it. I would ask the question because in the codified sort of set of rules or whatever you would call them, I see Bach, I see the musical offering, and like his notation. Well, he would actually put a cup and then flip it, so you kind of had an idea. Oh, I should probably play this upside down.
Right. Yeah.
And he did that to me. So
right. I love that. Thank you. Yeah, I guess the table music too.
I think most of us are pretty open to it. It's very cool.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
How important is the handwritten aspect to your score?
How important is the handwritten aspect to the score? I love that question. At the end of the day, I'm actually pretty easy. Like, I don't want to be attached to anything, but if I have my druthers, I'd like it to be just like this, except just more easy to read, darker. But I like the handwritten aspect. I think it's pretty important because I want people to think about making music, all of the ways of making music, as valid and meaningful, and I think having all of this written out in notes, I think will feel like fingernails on a chalkboard for me, actually, when I think about it. Especially you see, I love this too, but like that there's like this space and there's no staff at all, and I know people can do that. Like I have a guy who will do that, but yeah, as long as people can read it, I think it's way cooler. Yeah.
Any others? Well, I want to just first of all say, for those of you who, you're probably inferring this, but we have national programs called EarShot, which support composers all over the country. And we have readings programs which are for composers who already have a finished score, and we just read them down. But this was developed through a very different process. So under EarShot, we have a program called CoLABoratory, which, as you are figuring out from this conversation, is for ideas that are too big, bold, and beautiful to show up in a score for the first time. Like, they're showing up as an idea and a dream, and we're taking a year or more to develop that dream into something that might be done again. So it's always a process of inquiry, and I love this question up here. Like, could this be done again? Could it be done without you? That's always part of our thinking, because we want this to be done again. We want this to be their signature piece that they move around with the orchestras across the country and do, expanding how people think about orchestral music and helping musicians expand what they think they are capable of. So this is a very important project. It's one of my favorites. And I'm so excited. So thank you, Mazz, for this evening. We really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
And I also just, again, want to thank all of you for your adventurous spirit, for being here, for participating. I'm not sure you fully knew that you would be the concert tonight, but you were. So thank you so much. And just to share a little bit about who ACO is, if you're getting to know the American Composers Orchestra for the first time, we're an organization that supports composers and their trajectories and relationships with orchestras all around the country. We have the name orchestra in our name because, yes, we have an ensemble that is based here in New York and plays at Carnegie Hall, but our greatest impact to the field is really expanding the very definition of what American music, American orchestral music can do, and being in relationship with composers and orchestras across the United States, across the Americas, and in many cases, across the world. So tonight is a little bit of a look into that process. It's an opportunity for us to gather, and it's also an opportunity to just learn a little bit about where we're headed next. The thing that I'm so proud of, and I'm just gonna pause here and say, my Asian dad really wanted me to be in math, so I'm gonna share some numbers just to make him proud. He can't see me right now, but he must know energetically. So if we talk about the number 2,000, that's about the number of composers that ACO has worked with throughout our history. The number 850, that's about how many composers have been through our EarShot programs, okay? 250, that's the number of pieces that have been developed and have been rehearsed and performed through that process throughout time. If we look at the number 30, that is the number of orchestras that participate in a national consortium we run every year with the league. We've worked with over 80 in our history. So when we talk about what we do, it's helping other orchestras achieve their dreams in terms of how they work with living composers and how the work with composers and their imagination can transform what an orchestra is, does, and means to its public. And then maybe the number 3, that's the number of composers that have been placed with professional management just in the last year in order to achieve 25 additional repeat performances, engagements, commissions, and residency. That's a huge outcome for composers who are right at the start of their trajectory. And then the number 1, you know, everything that we talk about here, it's one composer, one trajectory, one career, one path. Like, this is not just a series of projects. This is a momentum towards a career. It is every single person sitting in the audience and having this beautiful experience. It's every orchestra that has the opportunity to engage with living music as a means of transformation. So all of this is possible through many different efforts. I want to take a second and just say, if you're an ACO staff member or artist, like, feel free to raise your hand right now, just so we know who you are. If you're a board member, raise your hand. So there are many of us here. So thank you to all of you for this. And also, it happens through philanthropy, because the amount that comes to our organization through ticket sales is very close to zero. We're not here for that. We're here for taking risks on projects that we know will be important. It's also helpful to know that the top 3 composers who are out there working with American orchestras today, by frequency of performance, are all alums of our programs. So we have had an impact on this field that is beyond the scope of what an organization of our size should do, and that comes from the support of people like yourselves. So I just want to say that, you know, when we think about where we're heading next, we have this bold new initiative that we're working on over the next few years to cement the work we've been doing. There's a lot to learn about that, but it feels urgent in this moment, because what Mazz is encouraging us to do is to find our freedom of expression, to protect our voice, and to encourage our imagination, which is the vehicle through which we imagine a future. So I just want to say thank you to each of you for being here. And if you want to learn more, there are many ways to do that. Come and talk to one of us. We'd be very happy to share more. Please feel free to support our organization if you so choose. You can visit any one of us and we'll point you to our website where that can happen. Feel free to attend any of our events. So if you want to see this in action, August 26th of this year, we have another workshop happening through CoLABoratory, and we also have our gala, which is a fabulous celebration being planned by Kimberly, our executive producer back here, on October 16th. It's a great way to celebrate what we do, and for the moment, thank you for being here. Let's eat and drink. Talk to you soon.